Welcome everyone to today's webinar on how your nonprofit can start a legacy giving program. I'm Amy Silver O'Leary, Director of Resource Development for the National Council of Nonprofits. We're the largest network of nonprofits in the country, and on behalf of our network, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this special event. You may have heard about today's webinar from your state association of nonprofits. If you aren't already a member, we encourage you to join your local state association so you don't miss out on important information that you need to serve the communities around you. We're grateful to our sponsor today, Neon One, for making this webinar and the forthcoming Guide to Legacy Giving possible. Neon One makes nonprofit software solutions to manage your end-to-end goals. Experience an integrated network of products, integrations, partners, and support. We also want to thank Zoom for supporting our free public events for nonprofits during the pandemic. We also want to thank you. This has been a very challenging year, to put it mildly. And despite all the challenges, nonprofits have stepped up, stepped forward, and continued serving your communities with amazing dedication, leadership, and creativity. Thank you. To help us learn more about this very important way that nonprofits can grow their sustainability for the short and long term, we're thrilled to have as our guest presenter today, Joe Tumolo, CEO of Major and Planned Giving Development. A little later, Tim Sarantonio from Neon One will share some of his wisdom with us as well. Then we'll get to as many of your questions as we can. I first heard Joe speak on planned giving, also known as legacy giving, some years ago when I was the development director for a small Quaker school in Philadelphia, and someone invited me to a talk Joe was giving for nonprofits. Despite the talk being held at the fancy Union League, pictured here, I found Joe's presentation to be super low-key and authentic. And in about a 30-minute presentation, I learned things that I use to this day in conversations with donors that have nothing to do with planned giving. Some of you know that here at the National Council of Nonprofits, one of the things we do is we create resources to inform nonprofits, especially where we think the nonprofit community could use more high-quality information. So we decided to create a free resource about the importance of legacy giving, with Neon One's generous support. And just so you know, our Guide to Legacy Giving is in design now and will be published soon. Everyone who registered for this webinar will automatically get a link to the guide as soon as it's out. We decided to kick off the guide's release with a webinar, so we needed an expert, which I'm not. So I naturally thought of Joe. Since seeing him at the Union League, I had read Joe's book, Simplify. I'd watched some of his webinars, and I called him up out of the blue and said, "Hey, Joe, will you present our webinar?" Having no idea who I was, he nevertheless very graciously agreed to present for us today. So Joe Tumolo is a chartered advisor in philanthropy. He's the CEO of Major and Planned Giving Development. He's helped more than 100 organizations start or expand their gift planning programs. Joe works with nonprofits of all shapes and sizes all over the country and tests what he teaches through his work as a part-time major gift planning officer for several nonprofits in New York and Pennsylvania. And with that, I am delighted to turn the floor over to Joe.
Amy, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'll be right with you. Hold on. I have all this luggage. I've got annual fund here. I've got major gifts here and pledges. Oh my gosh. And hold on, I got one more. This is capital campaign luggage here. And wait a minute, I'm missing something here. Where's planned giving? Where's the planned giving suitcase? Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Tumolo. I like to present metaphors and visual reminders to help make the point that how many times do we treat planned giving like that? It's like going on vacation. Let's say we're going to Europe and we're going to pack lightly because we're going to be traveling a lot. So I'll try to take one suitcase and my wife will try to take one suitcase. And we feel like, boy, we should take another one, but we have to schlep that suitcase all over Europe. Can't do it. And I think that's what happens with planned giving is people think, okay, I have all this stuff to do. And if planned giving comes up, if the donor brings it up, I'll bring it up. Many times, most times, the donor's not going to bring it up unless we bring it up. So my first suggestion is, if you remember nothing else, put everything in one suitcase. Put your annual fund, your major giving, your pledges, your capital campaign, if you're in that, and your planned giving all in one suitcase. So you don't have to think of it as one more thing to do, one more thing to carry on your back as you're going throughout your day. Amy, thank you so much again for that introduction. I'm surprised that you said I was low key. I must have had an off day, or actually I was in a formal setting, so I had to be more reserved. But today I'm not going to be reserved at all. And my goal here is to give you tangible, practical ideas and things that you can implement right away. And so without further ado, I will share my screen and go to the quick PowerPoint here. We don't have a lot of time to spend, so I'm going to go through this quickly. You'll have a copy of the recording, you'll have the slides, and you'll have access to me if there's anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about that you were hoping we would. So the title of this means something. Planned giving is for everyone. It's potentially for every donor. We should think of every donor as a potential planned giving donor. And everyone in our organization that is interacting with donors should be aware, confident, and intentional about offering these options in their suitcase, in their conversations with every donor. One moment. Okay, start with why. Always like to start with why in any communication, any presentation, any outreach, always start with why, right? I'm sure you've heard that. So why planned giving? I'm not into a lot of research. Research is interesting and it's important. And if you like that, there's a lot of stuff out there. My experience is when we focus too much on research, it kind of takes away from actually doing the work. But I have one slide here that is not news to you, I'm sure. And we've been saying this for 15 years since I've been in the business. The wealth transfer, the greatest, is taking place right now. When is the best time to start a planned giving program? Well, actually 20 years ago. When is the second best time? Now. So I assure you, if you are not taking every ethical, moral, and legal advantage of this opportunity with your donors, you are going to be left behind because it's happening as we speak. And the pandemic has only furthered that opportunity. If, as I speak with estate attorneys and people that offer will writing services, their business is booming. Your donors are thinking about their mortality, and many of them are taking action on that. And part of that could include their planning for the future. And so we need to make sure that we are sending this message in a positive and optimistic way with our donors, that they should be thinking about the impact, the legacy they want to leave with our organization. I have, Amy mentioned my one book. I have just wrote my third book. It's a one-page book. I don't have a lot of time to read, so I figured, well, probably other people don't have a lot of time to read, so why don't I come out with a one-page book? And if you can't say it in one page, then don't try to say it at all. So the title of this book is Why You Need to Get Serious About Planned Giving Today, and you can see that empty wallet. And the one page, I will read you this book. Up to 90% of your donors' wealth is in their assets, not their wallets or checkbooks. In their will, retirement plan, their house, real estate, appreciated stock, appreciated stuff. That's where most of our donors' wealth is. So why are we ignoring that reality, right? And so many of us just go after cash gifts. Well, we're missing a lot of the opportunity. One other quick study research that was done. And this basically shows that once donors make charitable beneficiary gifts, once they add us to our organization or add our organization to their plans, provided we do a good job of cultivating and stewarding them, their outright giving is highly likely to increase. And this shows in this study, these plan giving donors increasing over time. So any board member of yours that says, oh, why are we focusing on this? We need cash now. Yeah, these plan gifts, they're big gifts, but we may never see them. And if we do, it could be 20, 30 years. Well, if we take care of our donors, we're highly likely to see these gifts. Secondly, their outright giving is highly likely to increase as well. One more survey. Boy, I said I'm not into research and survey, but I guess I am, but this is it. This is my favorite, Decima Research Group, Penelope Burke. Perhaps you've seen her speak or read one of her books, Donor-Centered Fundraising. Excellent, excellent speaker, excellent book. I saw her speak a long time ago. This stood out for me, of course, as a plan giving person. In her research, 34% of her donors, or the donors they surveyed, said, yes, they would be open to a conversation about including their favorite charity in their estate plans. So about 3 or 4 out of 10 said, yeah, I'd be open to the conversation. Surprisingly or sadly, only 17% said the organization ever bothered to ask. Sometimes showing up and asking permission to have the conversation is a lot of it. And I'm going to give you very tactical, exactly what to say to your donors when you do that. So this is a philosophical approach to plan giving. Plan gifts help donors who want to do more to improve the quality of, insert your mission here, in this case, the quality of education we provide to those we serve without affecting their cash flow, retirement plans, or family obligations. So I say, if we are not offering these options, these non-cash gift options to our donors, I believe we are doing them a disservice. Instead of constantly going to them and saying, write us a check, give us your credit card number, write us a check. When we do that, yes, we need to do that. By no means am I diminishing the importance of annual gifts and major gifts and outright gifts, of course. But if that's all we offer people, I believe we're not truly recognizing the reality that they have needs and goals too, besides us. They're afraid of running out of money. They have this vision of the retirement. They may have a child with special needs, or they're taking care of parents or grandparents. So the really cool thing about giving from your assets recognizes and honors our donors' concerns and goals. So how do donors make plan gifts? Here are the most common, of course, and I'm going to walk you through this. Beneficiary gifts. The bulk of this stuff is so simple. You don't need to know anything, really, other than your tax ID number and your legal name. I'm simplifying, I'm oversimplifying. But most of the activity is leave us in your will, life insurance policy, my favorite, retirement plan. Why retirement plan? Because most of us have a retirement plan. And we know that when we put money in, that money goes in tax deferred. When we turn 72, Uncle Sam comes a knocking and says, hey, you never gave me my share all these years. Let's go. The cool thing is that we can take a percentage of that and give it to our favorite charity. And it's no money out of our pockets or our heirs' pockets. That's the cool thing. So when a donor says, yeah, I'd love to do something, Amy, but I need to provide for my kids. Okay, do you have a retirement plan? Well, guess what? Your kids aren't going to get all of it, right? Uncle Sam, the government is going to take a portion, and you can take some of that and give it to us. Of course, I'm shortening this for the brevity for the short amount of time we have. That's the idea. Keep in mind, please, and have big ears as you're interacting with donors, that some of these plan gifts are non-cash gifts for your donor, but provide our organization cash now. The two most common, again, retirement plans. So when we turn 72, if the donor has a traditional IRA, not a 401k, but a traditional IRA, not a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, I'm saying that to emphasize that, again, they're going to have to start taking money out. So they should really consider and talk to their accountant about making their current donations through that qualified charitable distribution. Another gift that provides us cash now is gift of appreciated stock. If a donor has held stock for more than 1 year and it's appreciated, it may be more tax efficient for them to make their gift now through that appreciated stock. So one of my favorite mantras, and I encourage you to internalize it, whether you say it out loud to the donor or you're thinking it, before you write that check. You know, Miss Donor, you mentioned you're turning 72. Do you have a traditional IRA? You do? Well, before you write this check for $10,000, you may want to consider making the donation from your IRA RMD. Check with your accountant, financial advisor, but it might be more tax efficient. Same thing with stock. Miss Donor, you mentioned that you like to buy stock and that you've had such and such Westinghouse, if they're still in business, Westinghouse stock for over 30 years. It may be more tax efficient for you to make that gift through your stock. Check with your accountant, right? So it does a number of things. It enables the donor to possibly give more. It shows the donor that we are a resource for them, that we're not just asking them, write a check, give us your credit card, right? So real simple, practical things, and it's not complicated. Anybody can do it. Just ask. So here's your action plan. These next 5 or 6 slides, I'm giving you very, very specific areas that you need to make sure you have in place, and that would enable you to go out and start. If you're not, start pursuing these opportunities. If you do have a plan giving program, hopefully there'll be something in here that you never thought about. These modules that I'm going to show you are the actual modules that people pay us to help them build out their program. So this is real practical stuff. Number 1, the boring but important stuff, the infrastructure, the back office. You need gift acceptance policies. We need to make sure that if we're taking non-cash gifts, we're doing that in a fiscally responsible way. And there's a link there for a sample gift acceptance policy. And we'll make sure you get that link specifically if you need the actual live URL. And then reporting and counting plan gifts. There is counting and accounting. We as fundraisers count and the finance office accounts, right? And they're 2 different things. So we need to make sure everybody internally is on the same page, and externally that we are recognizing donors who document their plan gifts, and in the same way as someone that would be writing us a big check. Another key element of infrastructure is goals. I highly recommend that you have written and practiced or intentional goals around plan giving, both behavior, how many conversations am I having with people about this, and results. How many Legacy Society members do we want to add this year? Very simple goal. I've had some great success with folks, with clients that may have an anniversary. Well, we're turning 30 this year or next year or in the next 3 years. How about we set a goal to get the 30 Legacy Society members to recognize our 30th year anniversary? Very cool thing you can do, a little mini campaign, right? But you have to have goals. And anyone that is spending time with donors should have goals, even if they don't have plan giving in their title. The next thing, your board. Nothing takes the place of one-on-one conversation. Have a plan. You can have a simple 1-page plan of what you're going to do this year in plan giving. Reach out to every board member in a personal way. I like to send a letter. Let them know you'll be calling to have a conversation about what we're doing. Either we're starting a plan giving program or we are committed to taking this thing to the next level. And I'd like to arrange some time for us to chat about it, how you make you aware of the plan and see how you might want to be involved and how you might help us, right? And of course, in that dialogue, we want to have a conversation with them about making a plan gift commitment and letting them know this does not have to be a huge commitment. You don't have to leave half of your estate. It can be something as small as 1%, 5%, 10%, of your retirement plan as an example, or a life insurance policy if you had 3 or 4 policies, right? It does not have to be a huge commitment. Big point for the board. Next slide. Whoops. Okay. So who are plan giving prospects? Of course, people that are affected positively by our missions. If it's a hospital and we've saved the donor's life, not us, but our physicians and nurses, chances are if they've had a life-saving experience, they might be open to doing something big, right, in their estate plans, treating us as part of their family. Of course, donors that are giving a lot and over a long time period, donors who are volunteers, right? The people, the people, intuitively, And I highly recommend that you put together a list of at least, if you don't have it, 10 donors who you think are most likely to be open to a conversation about this. And again, anyone else in your office that is in contact with donors on a regular basis, they should have a list of 10 people as well. And you should be reviewing that list on a monthly basis. Where are we with these people? Are you calling these people? Why aren't you calling? What's getting in your way, right? Or you are calling, what's happening? Did you have a conversation, right? And I'm going to give you a couple quick tips on having the conversation. And then keep that rolling list of 10. Somebody says, no, thank you, or maybe when I retire in 30 years, take them off the list and put somebody on it. So always maintain that list of 10 people, right? You can have more, but I'm saying 10 is a real simple way to work it and not feel like you're overwhelmed with it. And then, of course, the other big thing is donors who want to do more, but are not in a position to write a big check, right? Some people call plan gifts major gifts for the middle class. Love you guys. I want to do more. I want to have a bigger impact. Just not in a position to write a 5, 6, 7-figure gift. What else you got, right? Well, just happen to have a toolkit here, a suitcase with all kinds of options for you. How awesome am I, right? So this is huge. If you have people that fit that criteria, if they've been loyal donors and they do not have children, they have to be on your top 10 list. That's not always easy to know, but if you do, I mean, it's common sense, right? My wife, Lorraine, and I, we don't have kids. We're charitable, philanthropic. We're going to leave some to our nephews and nieces, but I don't want them to have all of it, right? So we're going to leave a fair amount to charity. So no kids, never married, boom, to the top of your list. Marketing and communication, not just marketing. People think, oh, we don't have a marketing budget. We can't afford to do a direct mail program or hire one of these plan giving marketing companies. Okay, well, you can do some things on your own. And it's communication. Communication can be a mass mailing. It can be a one-on-one email that you're sending out to a donor. It could be a pre-call letter or an email that you send to a donor and say, I'm going to be contacting you to talk about other ways that you can support a work that other donors are telling me they are benefiting by, right? I love to use that expression. I'm working with other donors who tell me they'd like to do more, but they're not in a position. And they ask me, are there other ways that they can have a bigger impact? Great way to say it in an objective way. So any messaging, simple, right? How easy it can be. Simplify, right, Amy? Simplify, available now on Amazon.com, right? Tell them the benefits. This is so important. Common sense, but not common practice. What is the benefit for the donor? Either to email you, have a conversation, have a visit with you. How do they benefit? And of course, one of the biggest ones is they can have a bigger impact and still accomplish their goals. And again, common sense, but not common practice, include a call to action. Give them an incentive to take action, right? We have some ideas that other donors tell us are more tax efficient ways to make their gifts. And the 2 examples I gave you earlier. Whoops, okay. Well, sorry guys, rushing here. Everybody calm down. Come on, technology. You've been so good so far. What happened? Okay, love this formula. Now, our name, as Amy said, is Major in Plan Giving. What is it? We just started. Major, I just changed it on Friday. So Major in Plan Giving Development, right? We changed it. It used to be Gift Planning Development, just plan giving focused. And then I realized that, man, I'm telling everybody, stop putting planned giving in a separate silo, a separate suitcase. Make it part of your everyday work. So we changed the name. So these ideas, this formula here works for major gifts, planned gifts, annual gifts in different ways. And it's basically 6 questions that I ideally try to get every donor, motivate, inspire every donor to answer. Some of these don't, the first and the 6 tend to happen in that order. The ones in between can happen in any order. I may actually have to ask the donor, or it may come out in our conversation. But the first one, as I said in the beginning of this presentation, start with why. Why are you so loyal? Why do you care, Mary, so much about our organization? Why are you here volunteering all the time? It's a great, simple question that anybody can ask, but most people don't. Another wonderful question, where? Where do you want to have an impact with your giving? Is it our research, our cancer center? Is it our faculty program? Is it in our adoption program, right? Basically, the programs that we offer, which are most important to the donor. What? Now, the what can be a lot of things. In this context, I think of what as, what are your concerns? What are your needs? What are your goals, as we've been talking about, for retirement, to take care of your family? Now, this is one that you have to be really careful, of course. You're not going to go ahead and ask that to somebody you don't know well. And depending on the relationship, it's always best to ask permission, right? And it has to be at the right time. So just be careful with the what question, of course. When do you want to have an impact? Do you want to have an impact now with an outright gift or a pledge, or upon your passing, or as I like to say, when your birth certificate expires, right? So when, and again, I may ask this directly or not, it may come out in the conversation, or I may ask questions that lead to the answer indirectly. The next one is what most people skip. This is how. It's not just about writing a check or giving us your credit card. If you are open to the conversation and I have earned your trust and I have your permission, could we have a how conversation? How is a gift through your assets, retirement plan, real estate, life insurance, will, right? On and on and on, appreciated stuff. So what I see with most fundraisers is they skip the how and they go right to the ask, right? So it's a great formula. I use it on the phone when I cold call loyal donors. I use it in living rooms with donors. After about an hour of chit chat, it's like, okay, I love chit chat, but we really are paid fundraisers. We need to kind of get to the business at hand. So a great way is to say, you know what, can I ask you a question? Why do you care so much? And then take them down that puts them in that mindset and takes them down that funnel, right? And again, these questions may be answered in one call or one visit, 2, 3, 4. There's no magic answer, but it's a really simple formula to remember. And when you get off track with a donor, or they get off track and they're rambling, it's a great way to bring them back to the conversation. And then finally, stewardship and cultivation, not just stewardship, not just keep them and keep us in their plans, which is important, but maybe they'd be open to a conversation about doing more as their life circumstances changes. I just got off the phone with a gift officer I work with, one of my contract clients, and she called me for that very reason. Back in January, the donor made a $100,000 intention documented in his will. And my colleague met with him for lunch today, this afternoon. And he, after a great conversation, said, you know what, I want to double that, right? So she did a great job of stewarding him. It's only been a couple months. But some people say, okay, they're in our will, or we're in their will, sorry. Just send them a birthday card and invite them to an event. That's fine, you should do that. But remember that as people's circumstances change, as their relationship with us strengthens, as their financial security improves over time, they may want to do more. The other thing is we want to have a statement of intention form, a document. You could just Google this, or I'm sure Amy and her team will have something to provide for you. But we want to document. If somebody says you're in my plans, great. We want to see if we can motivate, no hard sell here, inspire them to put it in writing, right? I have seen about 50% of the donors will document, 50% will not. If they don't document today, it doesn't mean they'll never document. Sometimes we just have to build more trust and rapport with them. I've had donors that's taken 3 years to document. Other times we have to wait for a life trigger event. Something happens in their life when they say, you know what, I'm ready to do something. I'm ready to commit to it. Not that it's guaranteed, but I'm ready to put something in writing. So sometimes it takes time, right? Keep them involved in your mission. Wonderful, simple question. Again, whether it's plan giving, major giving, annual giving, what would you need to see from us to know you've made the right decision to include us as one of your favorite charities? By the way, another great question to ask. You're having a great conversation with a donor. Love you guys, love this, love that. Can I ask you a question? Are we in your top 5 favorite charities? Yes, you are. Where are we? You're number 1. Great. That often leads me to a plan giving conversation, right? So yeah, so I hope this was helpful. Again, you'll have this. Please do the work. You have support from Amy. I'm available as well if you want to talk to us about helping you with your program. And there's my contact information.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was terrific. We have a lot of questions that have come in. We had some advanced questions. We will get to the questions, but before we do that, I want to invite Tim Sarantonio from Neon One to talk to us a little bit about the tech side of things and about a program they're going to do on inviting monthly donors into legacy giving. So I'm going to share, I have Tim's slides, so I'm going to share them right after I give this introduction. If I can walk and chew gum at the same time. Tim Sarantonio has more than a decade of experience working for and volunteering with nonprofits. You may have heard him speak at AFP, N10, TEDx, or other conferences. And in addition to his role as head of partnerships at Neon One and having 3 children under the age of 6, he somehow finds time to volunteer extensively in his hometown of Niskayuna, New York. So let me share my screen again and take it away, Tim.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Yeah, we're going to be quick. I wanted to make sure that we get back to the questions for Joe. Okay, so we're going to be finishing up that guide from a design standpoint that we co-authored with Amy's team. And we've been planning this webinar as kind of part of a series to help launch that. And one of the things that we're going to follow up on is more of a technical drill down into the fact that monthly donors are a really good source for finding legacy givers, a good focus for plan giving. So Joe outlined all the great things that you can do for people. We're going to do a little bit of a more tight focus on, let's talk about monthly givers. The reason for this is that there was some really great research done out of the United Kingdom, specifically on legacy givers, that found that monthly donors are 6 times more likely to become legacy givers. So what we are going to do is also have one of our friends on the next slide do a little bit of expert show and tell. Amy, there we go. So what we're going to do is kind of drill into the importance of why monthly givers are somebody to focus in on as a pipeline for creating a legacy giving pool of folks who are interested, and then using the different ways to identify, cultivate, and steward those folks into legacy givers. There's a lot of great things that I could point to for monthly giving overall, but this is one of my favorite ones. And then practically, how do you manage this in your constituent relationship management system? What we're not going to drill down into is like how to set up all this stuff from scratch. One, you just heard from Joe. We're creating a great guide for that. We have a lot of stuff on monthly giving, and we're creating even more as well. So final slide is who we're going to be bringing on in a webinar for May 12th. Everybody on this, especially if you've opted into receiving communications, this is what you're going to receive communications about, is this webinar with Ligia Pena. Fantastic fundraiser. She's worked for Greenpeace, overseeing their legacy giving. And so this is going to be something that we're doing special for you folks. So mark your calendars for May 12th. This will be something that will go hand in hand with the great information that you heard from Joe, and as well as the resource that we're going to be getting to you very, very shortly too. So that's my piece. Want to make sure we have ample time for questions.
And we do. Thank you so much, Tim. That was terrific. And everybody, we will send out the information about Tim's upcoming webinar with the follow-up resources from this webinar in case you want to connect with him. So we have a ton of questions. Joe, you should turn, there you are. And why is it not, there we go. So I don't even know where to start, but I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions that a lot of people have asked. And the first one is, do you worry at all about bringing this up at this sensitive time in history when so many people are grieving? Like, what's an example of a way that you can kind of acknowledge that as part of your initial conversation with the donor?
Yeah, thank you. It is a common question. Like I said at the beginning, people are planning. People are very aware of their mortality. And so it's a good time to bring it up in a respectful way. So exactly what you say, Amy, my little formula. Number one, acknowledge the reality. How you doing? How's it going? Did you get your shot, right? All those things that we're very naturally good at with a donor. Yes, right? And then the second thing is ask permission to have whether pandemic or not, ask permission to have the conversation. Many other donors, again, I call, don't take my word for it because I'm a fundraiser and I just want all your money, right? It's the stigma sometimes people have. So don't take my word for it. I'm biased. Other donors are telling me that they are really thinking about their future and planning, and are looking for other ways to support our work. Is this a good time for us to be having that conversation? Right? Is this a good time to be having the conversation? If you want to have an open-ended question, how would you feel about a conversation about other ways to support us? I call it a how conversation, and I see in the maybe this is a good segue, not to rush, but how, what do you mean? What's a how conversation? Well, so many times we just ask for cash gifts, and we never acknowledge the fact that most of our wealth is in our assets, our retirement plans, maybe appreciated stock, life insurance, other real estate or houses. And we don't always remind donors that there are other ways to support us, maybe more tax efficient. And with the markets being what they are and the new presidency, maybe some uncertainty, some donors are saying, what should I be thinking about in my giving? And we don't have to be tax experts. I'm not a tax expert at all. I'm far from it, right? But just giving them these examples. And it's okay to say, I don't know, right? I do, one of the places I work is a large health system here in Pennsylvania. They do a lot of gifts of real estate and land. I don't understand the tax implications, but it's not having all the answers. I believe it's having all the questions, right? If I'm really good at asking questions and listening and know what questions to ask, then we can figure it out. You have advisors, Miss Donor, right? And we may have somebody on our board that's an attorney that could help us with some ideas, not advice, but ideas, right? So it's acknowledge the reality, what's going on, ask permission to have a conversation. And then the how conversation is working with other donors who are looking for other ways to have a bigger impact, but they have needs, they have concerns like everybody. And if, as an example, if I'm speaking with someone that I know that has just retired, well, I'll acknowledge that I can't imagine what that's like, not getting a paycheck for the first time in decades. What is that like, right? And so I'm working with other donors who have recently retired who say, boy, if there's a way that I can still support you guys based on my current situation, I'd be open to a conversation around that, right? as an example.
Thank you. Very helpful. I really liked your metaphor with the suitcases. It was also a charming way to introduce yourself. But I'd like you to talk a little bit more about, we're getting a lot of questions. We have a lot of smaller nonprofits on the webinar who have maybe one staff member, maybe two. And so people don't know how they're going to fit it all in. And so I'd like you to talk a little bit about, that idea that it's not necessarily a new conversation that you're having with donors. It's part of the conversation that you want to be having with your, probably some subset of your donors. If that's 10, your top 10 or your top 50 or your top 2, whatever you can handle, you want it to be available as a possibility when you're engaging with those most committed donors.
Yeah.
So that's, people want to know, how am I going to do this with the amount of time I have?
Sure. So there's really, well, there's several, but the two main types of donors that I look at it is we have the wealthier donors who are in a better position to write us big checks. And I don't want to sabotage that, right? I don't want to say, whoa. Before you write that $1 million check to name the building, why don't you just put us in your will, right? I'm exaggerating, but I have seen that with, I saw that with a gift officer a couple of years ago. Great person, hardworking, well-intended, just wasn't thinking. Was working with a family that just sold their business for hundreds of millions, wanted to do a $2 million gift to build part of a building. And they could easily afford a $2 million gift, at least pledged over a couple of years. But she said, how about a half in check now and the other half in your will, right? Didn't need to do that, right? But so have these options available. And again, you have that sense, I'm sure, with people that you can kind of get a sense if they're hemming and hawing, and they clearly have the ability to do something financially. They say they want to, then I will pull out my toolkit of these non-cash gifts, depending on the situation. And then, like I said, there's another subset of people that are clearly, they don't write big checks. They've been given forever. They love us. They volunteer. They don't have kids. That doesn't take that long to have that how conversation, right? So I hope I'm answering the question. So for those top 10 people, or however many people you have that loyal, love you guys, not in a position to write a check, just take a couple of those a month and just call. Everybody has time to do that. We're all busy, right? We're all working a lot, working from home. We're all putting a lot of hours, but we have time. And sometimes we have to take something out of that suitcase, right? And to make space for something else. And you can easily make 1 or 2 or 3 of these calls a month. And then for everybody else, have it in the toolkit. And when it's appropriate, when you have that sense of, all right, they're not going to write a big check. Okay, then there's all these other options. Am I on target there?
Yes, that's really helpful. Thank you. I know it's helpful for me. We have the same problem everybody else has.
Yeah, we all
So
do.
several people have asked, what's an example of a how question? I think you talked about it a little bit, but if you could drill a little bit more deeply into the details of what does the how question look like?
Yeah, and that's my typical way for me to start it. Like I said before, is Tim, you've been a loyal donor. I go through those. Why are you so loyal? Right? Those 6 questions. Right? Start with those. What are some of the programs that are most important to you? The what question, again, we have to be careful with that, depending on how well Tim and I know each other, right? But here he is. Hi, Tim. We've just met, right? So Tim and I just met. I'm going to be careful, unless he's just like talking up a storm and telling me his life story. Then it's a lot easier for me to say, well, what are your concerns around your giving? If I could come up with a compelling reason for you to do more, would you be open to a conversation about that, right? And then that would lead to, well, you know what? I just retired. I'm not getting a paycheck. It's really a weird feeling. I need time to make sure that I have enough finances that I plan accordingly, right? So that if I could come up with a compelling reason for you to do more, how would you feel about a conversation around that? If you want to keep it an open-ended question, right? So it's just leading down that path in the formula. And then I might say, Tim, I I know we have a tendency to just always ask you for cash gifts. How would you feel about a conversation that I call a how conversation? And Tim might say, well, what is a how conversation? Well, we have other donors, some of whom have just retired, say, I want to keep supporting, or I'd love to do more, but I can't write you guys a big check right now. But they want to do something, and they're open to ideas. Most of our wealth is in our assets. Could be our retirement plan. You have a retirement plan. Or like I said, those items. So that's really, I hope I'm answering the question. And everybody has their own style. You have to do it. I'll give you the sheet music. You play it in your style. But it's really walking down those 6 questions, that formula. And then just saying, I call it a how conversation. And when I work with a team of gift officers, I say, okay, let me help you have some how conversations. Call some donors you've been dealing with forever and see if they'd be open to a how conversation. Other ways to support us. Ways through our assets, ways that may be more tax efficient, ways that may be smarter ways to give, right? Not that not that donors are stupid. I want to be careful with that, but maybe more thoughtful ways, I should say, to give, right?
Yeah, even scripting it out might help. Kind of the obstacles, and even having it internally, the tree of like, if they say this, then go down this road. If they say that, then go down that road.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And it's practice, right? Between the 3 clients that I serve as a contractor, I probably make it 100 cold calls a week to loyal donors, right? So it's just practice, and it's testing, right? And I write stuff down, and I've been doing this a long time, and I keep refining it. How can I get people to return my call? I get somebody on the phone that's not expecting my call. What can I say to not sound like a robocaller, which is what people are thinking I am, right? Immediately, I want to show them this is a different call. This is not your typical fundraising call, right?
Personalization is key. I mean, that's what people respond to. There was even a stat that and consumer behavior, typically donor behavior, trails very closely to consumer behavior, and 90% of U.S. consumers want personalization in their engagements and communications at this point.
Thank you, Tim. The typical robocaller is not doing that. They're following the script. And so I'm doing my cold calls for the hospital system before this call, and I'll get back to it when we're done. Mm-hmm. And I had a woman, she was kind of like, wasn't expecting my call. She didn't know me. It was a little leery. And I just said, how you making out? How you doing with COVID and everything? The older woman, you taking care of yourself, right? That immediately was like, all right, wait a minute, this is not a robocall, because robocallers don't do that. Mm-hmm. To your point, right? I think that's consistent with what you were just saying.
Yep. Yeah. Just treat people like people and have a conversation with them. I remember when I was working at my job before Neon, we had a kind of legacy circle party, and we had all these folks, and this is like 10 years ago, but still, when parties were a thing. But there was a name tag that we made for everybody, and a woman had crossed out the auto thing that we had used from our database, and she put something else. She put like Kiki, right? And I looked at that. I immediately ran up to the database and like put nickname Kiki. Like I'm going to remember the fact that she was so annoyed that we got her name wrong on the name tag that I'm never going to let that happen again. So it's those little details that build up. I mean, didn't we hear about the whole legacy debacle with the university? Was it USC, I think, where there was a woman who they left, her mother passed away, a major donor's mother passed away, and they didn't reach out. And so she's like, you're done. You're out. You're out of my will. You're completely done. Oh, you're done. Okay. Sorry, folks. I'm going to mute myself because Little Mermaid is done.
Thank you, Tim. A lot of questions here, Amy. I can see them as well. Do you want me to kind of browse through these?
Yeah, I've been trying to mark ones that I was going to ask you live, hoping that they would be of general interest. Yeah, if you see one you want to answer, please jump in. You'll see a couple that are marked.
There's one about. Oh, interesting. Okay. There's one. What do I mean by statement of intention? Actually, Tim, not that I wasn't paying attention to you, but I figured while you were talking, I just Googled plan giving statement of intention. And I mean, and like Google image, the hundreds, I don't know who these folks are. Maybe they're on the call. I apologize if we're stealing your information, but I just Googled image, plan giving statement of intention. And this is the form that you want to motivate, inspire, encourage the donor to fill out to document their intention, right? So we have this on file. Why would we do that? We want to be good stewards of your intention. We want to make sure, hopefully we don't see this gift for a long time. Donor tends to chuckle, right? But it's true. And we may not be here, my team. So we want to make sure that your wishes are met. We want to be good stewards of your intention. That's like the number one reason why I suggest, and then make sure that obviously that it goes where it needs to go, right? So that is that one. Is legacy endowment the same as plan giving? Well, plan gifts are great at feeding, building an endowment, but in your gift acceptance policies, you would want to have that. If we get a $100,000 bequest out of nowhere that we're not aware of, is that going to go in endowment? Is that going to go into unrestricted? Just spend it to pay the utility bill, right? So you want to have that clearly articulated and be able to message that to your donors. So legacy endowment, is it the same as plan giving? Well, it's endowment, plan gifts build endowment. Yeah, so I hope that answers that question. How would you react if the donor says you're not in the top 5? I might say, what would you need to see from us to get us in your top 5? That would be my response, right? And they may say nothing. I say, okay. Would it be a bad idea if I stayed in touch? Would it be a bad idea? Would you be opposed to my bringing up the conversation again down the road? Let's see, what else? Do I recommend contacting an attorney or CPA or other professional to set up a legacy giving program? Generally they would not, that I'm aware of. Amy, is that something? Obviously, that's what we do for a living. Again, a quick plug here. But Amy, are you guys doing some of that?
No, we don't. I think for details like that, I think I sort of feel like questions like that are a little bit beyond the scope of the webinar. I feel like what we're trying to do is show everybody why this is so important, that it's not that hard to get started, but then you're still going to need to get some expert help from various places. Like, I don't want anybody to end this webinar feeling like, well, now I'm trained to start. I think you're trained to get some more information from whatever resources you trust. If you trust your CPA or your attorney to give you guidance on this, and they seem like they're very knowledgeable about it, I think that's fine. I think you might go to your board. When we send a guide out, it links to a bunch of resources that you can really get some in-depth training on. And I think you can just bite off as much as you can chew at each time. Like, you don't have to launch a full-blown plan giving program all at once. You can establish a named society. Like, what are we going to call it? We're going to call it our Legacy Giving Society. This year, let's just ask our board members if they would, take the first step, be the early adopters, and sort of populate the list. So now we have 5 people on the list when we launch it publicly rather than nobody. But I don't want to answer really, really detailed technical questions like that right now, because I don't think that's what we're about. Tim?
And I do have another resource that is a fascinating one that I found to get those answers especially on the non-liquid assets that typically high net worth individuals have. Go to one of your board members that you trust or a major donor, ask them who their wealth advisor is, and see who is giving them financial advice for these types of things. Many times they're going to be able to make recommendations, and they might even have more people in the network that they know that they're their clients that might be interested in your organization too. That's one that we've worked with some wealth advisors here, and that's been a fascinating new channel as well.
There is
other
a company
resources that we link to in the guide, your community foundation, especially if you have a relationship with them, they often have really great guidance and resources on this. When I was at the Quaker School, we had an organization called Friends Fiduciary that did all of this really in-depth financial stuff for all the little Quaker organizations all over the country, most of whom couldn't handle more complex planned gifts, or if somebody gave us appreciated stock, it would go through Friends Fiduciary. So if you're a faith-based organization, if you're a school, very often there's an organization that helps all the schools in your community. So there are ways to get expert help when you need expert help. We're not that right now. Go ahead, Joe.
Great. What do I consider good options to include as call to action when you're marketing plan giving? Well, you could, this sounds really silly, but I've seen people do it with success. It sounds crazy, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You can get a free coffee mug. It sounds insane, but I've seen it work. Where there's a book, Predictably Irrational, Dan Ariely, and he says, no matter how educated, street smart we think we are, we do irrational things. And one of those things is we respond to free stuff. When we go to a trade show, a conference, and somebody hands out a free pen, you get all excited and you're like, it probably cost them 50 cents, right? But it could be a free, let's say we're a conservation or a land trust, a free calendar of these beautiful photography, or a free artist rendering of our whatever beautiful area, right? That could be one. I'm not big on free estate planning guide and all that. If you're doing that and it works, keep doing it. That to me kind of tends to make it sound more complicated. Like, oh my gosh, I need to do my estate plan. Forget it. It sounds like too much work, right? The human brain does not like to burn calories. And so I want to make it really simple for people, and I don't want to make it too complicated. So there's a couple ideas there, and get creative with it. And as Tim said, sit down and brainstorm over it. What could we give somebody that might incentivize them, right? And not just, I learned from a marketing guru, and I was guilty of doing this with my company. Call for a free consultation. That's not an offer, right? It's not. So we would give a free white paper, a free report, right? I'm sure, Tim, you guys do that stuff. Are you honoring those with letter of intentions on such things as donor walls? Wow.
Wait, I'm going to have to stop you, Joe.
Okay.
I'm so glad we had so much time for Q&A, but we don't have time for all of them.
Okay.
It's right now 4:30 Eastern. So we are going to save these questions, and we may be able to send out some answers to some of them in our follow-up email. You'll also get a link to the recording. You'll get the slides. You'll get a link to Tim's upcoming webinar. And as soon as the guide is out, we'll send that to you as well. And I know Joe and Tim are available if you have questions or comments. Thank everybody so much for attending. Thank you guys so much for your presentations. Thanks to Neon One for sponsorship. And thank you everybody who was here.
Awesome. Thanks all of you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Stay well, guys.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Thank you, Amy.